My agent wanted me to be famous so badly she practically lost her mind. Actually, scratch that. She definitely lost her mind. Her brilliant strategy involved getting me blackout drunk and dumping my unconscious body into the hotel suite of the Prince of Pembroke, the most untouchable bachelor in Los Angeles. He called me shameless. I called him a pervert who thinks with the wrong head. We spent the entire night screaming insults at each other until our voices gave out, and we passed out from sheer exhaustion. When I opened my eyes the next morning, my headache was splitting. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the four heads hovering over the foot of the bed. My parents, his parents, all of them, were beaming like Cheshire cats who had just swallowed the canary. Thank God. Finally, Mrs. Pembroke clasped her hands together, looking like she just won the lottery. Our childhood sweethearts made it official. I knew you two couldn't stay away from each other. I looked at Spencer, he looked at me. We were dead. Let's rewind a bit. I'm an actress, a real one. I care about the craft, the method, the art. I don't care about the schmoozing, the networking or the fake air kisses at gala dinners. Sleeping with a director for a role. Not in this lifetime. Catching a ride on a producer's private jet in exchange for company hard pass. My agent, Mindy, found this deeply distressing. She constantly lamented that my face, which she objectively described as marketable, was being wasted on a stubborn Neil like me. If I had even announced less pride, I wouldn't still be stuck on the deal list. After 4 years in the industry, I was the lowest ranking client on her roster. And definitely the most difficult. So naturally, Mindy got desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. It happened at the wrap party for a project. I barely had 3 lines in. A major investor made a surprise appearance. Mindy, seeing her golden ticket, started pushing drinks on me with an aggression that bordered on coercion. Just one more toast, Riley. Don't be rude. This is for your future. I have the alcohol tolerance of a toddler. I was done for. Before the appetizers were even cleared, I was face down on the table, the room spinning like a merry-go-round from hell. The next thing I remember is a blur of motion. I could feel Mindy's bony shoulder digging into my armpit as she practically dragged me down a plush, carpeted hallway. She was huffing and puffing like a steam engine. Jesus, Riley, she wheezed. You weigh a ton. Excuse me. I'm 5'8". For my latest role, a character who actually eats food, I had bulked up to 140 pounds. It was a healthy weight, a normal weight. But for Mindy, who subsisted on celery sticks and rage, dragging my dead weight was her own personal CrossFit workout. Good, that's what she gets for spiking my drink or whatever. She did beep. The distinct sound of an R.F. keycard unlocking a door cut through my fog. A few stumbled steps later, I was unceremoniously dumped onto a mattress. That felt like it cost more than my entire car. I felt Mindy's hands on me, stripping off my dress. At the time, in my drunken haze, I thought she was being considerate. I let her manipulate my limbs like a rag doll. I didn't have the energy to lift a finger, let alone protest. Darkness took me again. The next time consciousness hit me, it came in the form of a thunderous, familiar male voice. What the hell are you doing in my bed? My eyes flew open. They felt heavy, like they were weighted down with lead. The room was dim, but I could make out a silhouette looming over me. Holy! Are you a flasher or something? I shrieked, my voice raspy. Spencer Pembroke stood there, fresh out of the shower. Water droplets were still clinging to his chest. And he was wearing nothing but a white towel low on his hips. He rolled his eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Look in the mirror, princess. You're not exactly dressed for church either. I looked down. Oh, God. I was in my underwear, just my underwear. I could have walked straight onto a Victoria's Secret set, and nobody would have blinked. I scrambled backward, snatching the duvet and clutching it up to my chin. I glared at him with as much menace as I could muster. Why are you in my room, Pembroke? Huh? Spencer looked at me like I was the one who had lost my mind. Get your facts straight, Riley. This is my suite at my hotel. I sat there clutching the sheets, staring at him in shock. My brain started to reboot. Mindy, the hallway. The key card. She had actually done it. She had smuggled me into Spencer Pembroke's room. The audacity was so breathtaking. I almost forgot to be angry, almost. By now, Spencer had grabbed a robe and thrown it on, covering up the goods. He walked over to the mini bar, poured a glass of ice water and thrust it toward me. I reached out to take it, but my hand wouldn't move. I looked up. He was holding on to the glass, narrowing his eyes at me with suspicion. Be honest, he said, his voice dropping an octave. How many times have you pulled this stunt? Excuse me. My temper already short, snapped. I grabbed the glass and instead of bringing it to my lips, I jerked my wrist upward. Splash. The ice water soaked perfectly into the front of his fresh robe. If you can't speak like a human being, keep your mouth shut, I snapped. Spencer slammed the empty glass down on the nightstand. His eyes looked like an active volcano, about to erupt. You get drunk on purpose. You conspire with my staff to get a key card. You strip down and crawl into my bed. He leaned in, his face inches from mine. Riley, it's been years. Did your dignity get eaten by a dog? I stood up on the bed, mostly to get some height advantage, and swung my hand. Smack. My palm connected with his cheek. It wasn't hard, more of a warning shot. But the sound was crisp. I told you my agent did this. I had no idea. Bullshit. He hissed, grabbing my wrist before I could swing again. Without your permission, she wouldn't dare. He sneered, his grip tightening just enough to be annoying. Selling your body for a role. I didn't think you could sink this low. I was already dizzy. Now I was seeing stars. From pure rage, I did the only logical thing. I bit him right on the hand. Ow. Fuck. He let go, shaking his hand. I rubbed my own wrist, glaring at him. And you? You seem to know the drill pretty well. How many times, please? Who knows how many desperate girls you've taken advantage of? In this exact room? I threw his own judgment back in his face. 3 years of no contact. And look at you. The Prince of Pembroke is acting like a common predator. Predator. You're the one in my bed. You arrogant, narcissistic Nepo baby. You delusional, desperate deal stealer. We didn't stop. We argued like that for hours. We argued until the sun started to bleed through the curtains. Finally, around dawn, my adrenaline crashed. I'm sleeping, I announced, collapsing back onto the pillows. We continue this when I wake up. Agreed, he muttered, collapsing onto the chaise lounge across the room. We slept hard, so hard that neither of us heard the door open. Click, click. Bisque, TSK. Look at them. They look adorable when they aren't talking. I told you the Cold War was just for show. Privately, they're inseparable. You guys owe me $20. Yes. Yes. You have the eyes of a hawk, Martha. It was so loud. Why was there buzzing in my room? I forced my heavy eyelids open. 10 eyes met mine. I must be dreaming. I hallucinated my parents and Spencer's parents, standing in a semicircle around the bed. I closed my eyes immediately. Nope, not dealing with this. Dad, Mom. Spencer's voice cracked. He sounded terrified. I snapped my eyes open again. For heads, for beaming smiles. Good morning, sweetheart. My mom chirped. Good morning, son. Spencer's dad boomed. Silence. I looked at Spencer. He looked at me with the exact same expression of pure, unadulterated horror. We were screwed. No matter what we said, no matter how much we explained, the optics were damning. Oh. Don't be shy. My mom waved a hand dismissively. We're very open-minded. Mrs. Pembroke nodded vigorously. Spencer, you better not be the kind of man Who takes advantage of a girl and then refuses to take responsibility? We didn't raise you like that. My dad and Mr. Pembroke exchanged a manly nod. Let's check the calendars. We need to set a date. Spencer and I sat there paralyzed. Innocent, yet totally guilty in the court of public opinion. Spencer was the first to find his voice. How? How did you guys even know we were here? My mom pulled out her iPhone and tapped the screen. Twitter, obviously. She turned the screen toward us. Trending topic number 1, hashtag. Actress breaks into Pembroke suite. Trending topic number 2, hashtag Riley Lou desperate. Trending topic number 3, hashtag the Prince and the Pauper. Below the hashtags were photos. Rainy CCTV screenshots leaked to TMZ. But here was the kicker. Mindy had been photoshopped out. It showed me entering the room. 10 minutes later, it showed Spencer entering the room. The timestamp was damning. The internet had connected the dots and drawn a very specific, very scandalous picture. No wonder Mindy was huffing and puffing last night. She wasn't just tired. She was racing against the clock to get me inside. Before Spencer came back, the comments were scrolling by in real time. Is that Riley Lou, the girl from that soap opera? Who never heard of her? Another CEO lister trying to sleep her way to the top. She has guts messing with Spencer Pembroke. Remember Felicity Sparks? R.I.P. Her career. Felicity Sparks. Former period drama, sweetheart. She tried a similar stunt to get a lead role in a Pembroke production. Spencer didn't just reject her. He blacklisted her. She hasn't worked in this town since. Back then, Spencer tweeted one sentence. Don't play games. You can't win. Reading the comments, my hangover pulsed behind my eyes. I've been in this industry for 4 years. I've clawed my way up from extra to supporting roles purely on merit. If I wanted a shortcut, I wouldn't need to sleep with anyone. I could just ask my dad. My name is Riley Lou. The Lou family of New York. We go back generations with the Pembrokes. Spencer and I are exactly 1 month apart in age. I'm a Scorpio. He's a Sagittarius. One is a grudge-holding mystery. The other is a blunt instrument of chaos. We didn't just grow up together. We survived each other. We fought over toys. Over grades, over who got the front seat. Me and Spencer, a couple. It would be like mixing Mentos and Diet Coke. Explosive and messy, impossible. Besides, we haven't spoken in 3 years. I looked at Spencer and mouthed. What do we do? He caught my signal. He put on his best charming, sociable smile and turned to the 4 parental figures. Why don't you guys head down to brunch first? Riley and I. We need to talk. Oh, 4 of them made a collective sound that made my skin crawl. We get it. We get it. Bye. They practically skipped out of the room. The door clicked shut. Spencer and I let out a simultaneous long exhale. For the first time in years, we were on the same team. I slumped back against the headboard. What's the play, Pembroke? Surprisingly, he didn't snap back. I'll follow your lead. Whatever you want to say. I'll back you up. Old habits die hard. So I couldn't resist a jab. Wow. The great Prince of Pembroke taking orders from a D-list actress. What an honor. He ignored the bait. He pulled out his phone. Fine. I'll call my dad right now. I'll tell him we discussed it. And the wedding is next Saturday. Don't you dare. I put my hands together in prayer. Please have mercy. The problem with Spencer is that he would actually do it. Just to spite me. Back in middle school, he wrote a love letter to a girl. His parents found it before he could get a lecture. He panicked and yelled, "It's for Riley." I was sitting in my living room in New York, minding my own business when the blame landed on my head. Our parents ate it up. They thought it was cute. I was just giving you the authentic puppy love experience. He had claimed back then. Thanks, asshole. Because of him, my parents went into hyperprotective mode. No dating until you're 18. Monitored my texts, drove me everywhere. I had a crush on the captain of the debate team. He stopped talking to me. Because he thought I was spoken for by the crazy Pembroke kid. High school, Spencer promised my parents he'd look out for me. Translation, he chased away every guy who even looked in my direction. Then college in LA, he started preaching. Men are trash, Riley. Focus on your career. Meanwhile, he was dating a different model every week. Hypocrite. Now. We were 28, the age where parents stop thinking it's cute. And start thinking about grandchildren. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Maybe we just let it ride. The Cold War is over. Let the internet think what they want. Bad press is still press, right? You really hate the idea of being connected to me that much. I looked up. The sunlight was hitting his back, casting his face in shadow. I couldn't read his expression. Duh, I said, obviously. Spencer's jaw tightened. He stood up abruptly. Fine. He slammed the bathroom door shut. I blinked. I was going to suggest we exchange numbers again. You know, for logistics. But since he was throwing a tantrum. Forget it. I grabbed my phone and dialed Mindy. It rang for a long time. Hello? Her voice was barely a whisper. Did a demon possess your brain last night, Mindy? I didn't hold back. I just thought the way he looks at you. He looks at me like he wants to strangle me. So did it work? Are you guys? No comment. I hung up. People see what they want to see. Mindy saw a shortcut. The internet saw scandal. Our parents saw a wedding. Nobody saw the truth. The bathroom door remained shut for what felt like an eternity. I could hear the shower running, the sound of water hitting tile creating a rhythmic backdrop to my racing thoughts. My phone buzzed incessantly with notifications, Twitter mentions, Instagram tags, text messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly eager to reconnect now that I was dating Spencer Pembroke. I scrolled through the chaos with a growing sense of dread mixed with something else I couldn't quite name. The photos had multiplied. Someone had dug up old childhood pictures of Spencer and me at various family gatherings, his 8th birthday party where we're covered in chocolate cake, a Christmas photo where I'm pulling his hair, a summer beach trip where we're building sandcastles side by side. The internet had constructed an entire narrative, childhood sweethearts separated by pride, reunited by fate. The comments had shifted too. The initial vitriol was being drowned out by a new wave of sentiment. Okay, but the childhood photos are adorable? I ship it. Prince finds his Cinderella. Plot twist, she's not a gold digger, she's old money. This is an enemies to lovers arc and I'm here for it. I threw my phone onto the nightstand harder than necessary. The shower stopped. I waited, suddenly very aware that I was still in my underwear, clutching a duvet that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Spencer emerged in a cloud of steam, dressed in dark jeans and a crisp white button-down that he hadn't bothered to fully button. His hair was damp, falling across his forehead in a way that was annoyingly photogenic. He didn't look at me as he crossed to the closet. There are clothes in here, he said, his voice carefully neutral. Left by my sister when she visited last month. You're about the same size. I'm not wearing your sister's. Riley. He finally turned to face me, and something in his expression made me stop mid-sentence. Unless you want to do the walk of shame through the lobby in last night's cocktail dress while the paparazzi are camped outside, I suggest you take the clothes. Paparazzi. Right. Because of course there would be paparazzi now. I swallowed my pride, not easy for a Scorpio, and took the offered outfit. Black jeans, a soft cashmere sweater in deep emerald, even fresh underwear still in the package. His sister had good taste, I'd give her that. The bathroom was still humid from Spencer's shower, smelling of expensive soap and his cologne, something with notes of sandalwood and bergamot that I remembered from years ago. Some things never changed. I caught my reflection in the mirror as I dressed. My makeup from last night had created dark shadows under my eyes, my hair was a disaster, and I looked exactly like what I was, a woman who'd woken up in a bed she hadn't meant to be in. When I emerged, Spencer was on his phone, pacing by the window. The morning light caught him in profile, highlighting the sharp line of his jaw, the slight furrow between his brows that appeared when he was concentrating. He'd always been good-looking, that was never in question. The problem was he knew it. My publicist wants a statement, he said without looking up. Your move. I joined him at the window. We were on the 20th floor, with a view that stretched across downtown Los Angeles. I could see the tiny figures of people on the street below, going about their normal Saturday mornings, blissfully unaware of the social media firestorm happening in this room. What if we told the truth? I suggested. Spencer's laugh was sharp and humorless. Which truth? That your agent drugged you and dumped you in my bed hoping I'd take advantage of you? That sounds so much better. It's not my truth. It's the truth. Riley. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were tired. We could serve the truth on a silver platter with receipts and witnesses, and nobody would believe it. You know how this works. The narrative is already written. We're either a couple, or you're a desperate actress who tried to trap me, or I'm a playboy who used you. Pick your poison. I hated that he was right. I'd been in this industry long enough to know that facts mattered less than story, and the story the internet wanted was the fairy tale romance or the scandalous exposé. There was no middle ground for the truth. So what do you suggest? I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. Spencer was quiet for a long moment, his gaze drifting back to the window. When he spoke, his voice had a strange quality to it, something almost vulnerable underneath the usual confidence. Do you remember the summer before you left for NYU? The question caught me off guard. What does that have to do with? Just answer the question. I thought back 8 years, to that strange liminal space between high school and college, between childhood and whatever came next. The Hampton House party. Your mom's charity gala. That's the summer you started dating Madison Kent. Before Madison. His jaw tightened. Do you remember the 4th of July? I did. Of course I did, though I'd spent years trying not to think about it. The Pembroke family had thrown their annual Independence Day celebration at their estate in the Hamptons. There had been fireworks and champagne and a kind of careless wealth that I'd grown up around but never quite felt comfortable in. Spencer and I had ended up alone on the beach, away from the party, watching the explosions of color reflected in the ocean. You asked me if I was scared, I said slowly, the memory coming back in fragments. About leaving for New York. You said you were terrified. Spencer's voice was soft now, so different from his usual sharp edges. You said you didn't know who you'd be without everyone watching, without the expectations. You asked me if I thought you'd fail. I had asked him that. And he'd looked at me in the moonlight, the distant fireworks painting his face in reds and blues and golds, and he'd said, I told you that you were the bravest person I knew, Spencer continued. That you'd succeed at anything you put your mind to because you actually gave a damn about doing it right, not just doing it for show. He paused, his reflection in the window overlapping with mine. Then I kissed you. My breath caught. Spencer. And you kissed me back, he said, still not looking at me. For about 30 seconds. Then you pulled away and said it was a mistake. That we were just caught up in the moment, the summer, the champagne. That it couldn't mean anything because we were Spencer and Riley, and we didn't work like that. We don't work like that, I insisted, but my voice lacked conviction. The next day, you were on a plane to New York. You didn't answer my calls for a week. When you finally did, you told me you'd met someone in your orientation group. You suggested we should probably stop with the whole pretend we're dating to appease our parents thing because you had a real boyfriend now. I never said. Tom. His name was Tom. Pre-med. You sent me a picture of you two at some campus event. Now Spencer did turn to face me, and something in his expression made my heart race. I started dating Madison Kent 2 days later. Made sure there were plenty of pictures. The pieces were clicking together, forming a picture I'd refused to see for 8 years. You were trying to make me jealous. I was trying to prove I didn't care. Spencer's smile was bitter. Worked great, didn't it? You stayed in New York for college, then grad school. I stayed here building my career. We saw each other at family events maybe twice a year, never alone. We were perfectly civil. Perfectly distant. Until 3 years ago. 3 years ago. The memory was sharp enough to cut. Spencer's grandfather's funeral. The Pembroke patriarch who'd built the family empire had passed away peacefully in his sleep, and both families had gathered for the service. I'd come back from a theater run in Boston, exhausted and grieving for a man who'd always treated me like his own granddaughter. Spencer and I had barely spoken during the reception. Then, late in the evening, I'd found myself alone in his grandfather's study, a room that smelled like old books and expensive bourbon. Spencer had walked in moments later. "I shouldn't have come," he'd said, not to me, but to the room. "I should have said goodbye before. I kept thinking I had time. And I'd done something I couldn't explain, even to myself." I'd crossed the room and hugged him. Just that. But Spencer had frozen in my arms, his whole body going rigid, and then he'd stepped back like I'd burned him. "Don't," he'd said, his voice raw. "Don't comfort me, Riley. You don't get to do that." "I'm sorry," I'd whispered, confused by the anger in his eyes. "I just wanted to." "What? What did you want?" He'd laughed, the sound harsh and wrong in that quiet room. "You left, Riley. You chose to leave. You chose Tom, then that director in grad school, then whoever else came along. You made it very clear that whatever we had, whatever we could have had, you didn't want it. So don't stand here now and pretend you care." I'd been stunned into silence. Before I could respond, Spencer's mother had called for him, and he'd left. We hadn't spoken since. Not a word in 3 years, until last night when I'd woken up in his bed. Now, standing in the morning light of his hotel suite, I finally understood what I'd been too scared to see back then. "You wanted me to stay," I said, the realization hitting like a physical blow. "That summer. You didn't want me to go to New York." Spencer's expression was carefully blank. "Ancient history. Is it?" I took a step closer to him. "Is that why you've spent 3 years avoiding me? Why you looked like you wanted to throw me out the window when you found me in your bed last night? You're reading too much into. Why did you say you'd follow my lead?" I interrupted. "Why didn't you just call security last night and have me removed? Why did you argue with me for hours instead?" "Because Spencer stopped, his jaw working like he was physically holding back words. "Because despite everything, I didn't want to hurt you." "Happy? That's what you wanted to hear?" "No." I was close enough now to see the flecks of gold in his hazel eyes, close enough to see the tension in his shoulders. "I want to hear the truth. The real truth, not the version you tell yourself to sleep at night." The silence stretched between us, taut as a wire. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. Inside, the only sound was our breathing, slightly uneven, slightly too fast. "I hated you," Spencer said finally, his voice low and intense. "When you left for New York, I hated you. When you called to tell me about Tom, I hated you. When I saw you at family events looking beautiful and successful and completely fine without me, I hated you." He paused, his eyes searching mine. "But the person I hated most was myself, for caring. For still caring. For hoping that maybe, someday, you'd look at me the way you used to look at me that night on the beach." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "How did I look at you?" "Like I was the only person in the world." His hand came up, hesitating just inches from my face. "Like maybe we could be something more than what everyone expected. Something real." I should have stepped back. I should have said something cutting, something to break the tension, to return us to our safe antagonism. Instead, I heard myself say, "I broke up with Tom after 2 months." Spencer's hand froze. "What? After 2 months? He was nice, but he wasn't." I trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "Wasn't what?" "Wasn't you." The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. I told myself it didn't matter. That you and I were toxic together, that we brought out the worst in each other. I convinced myself that the fighting, the competition, the constant need to prove something to each other, that wasn't healthy. That wasn't love. Riley. But maybe I was wrong. I looked up at him, at this man I'd known my entire life, this man I'd spent years running from. Maybe we fought because we cared too much, not too little. Maybe we competed because we pushed each other to be better. Maybe we needed to prove something because we were both too scared to admit what we really wanted. Spencer's hand finally made contact, his fingers ghosting along my jawline with a gentleness that made my breath catch. "And what did you want?" "The same thing you wanted." I leaned into his touch. For someone to see past the family name, the expectations, the role I was supposed to play. To just see me. The real me. "I've always seen you, Riley." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. "Every version of you. The stubborn 8-year-old who refused to let me win at chess. The 15-year-old who cried when we watched The Notebook even though you pretended you didn't. The 18-year-old on the beach who kissed me like she meant it. The 28-year-old woman who bit my hand last night because I insulted her integrity. I laughed, the sound somewhere between a sob and genuine amusement. You deserved it. I did. He smiled, and it was the real smile, the one I remembered from before everything got complicated. I deserved a lot worse for the things I said. I'm sorry, Riley. For last night, for 3 years ago, for all of it. I'm sorry too. I placed my hand over his, holding it against my face. For running. For being too scared to stay and fight for what I wanted. For letting you think I didn't care. We stood there in the morning light, years of misunderstanding and hurt slowly unraveling between us. It wasn't a movie kiss, wasn't a dramatic reconciliation. It was quieter than that, more real. It was two people finally being honest after years of hiding behind pride and fear. So what now? Spencer asked, echoing my earlier question. What do we tell everyone? I thought about it, really thought about it. The paparazzi downstairs. The trending hashtags. Our parents who were probably already planning seating charts. The internet that had decided our story for us. And somewhere in all that noise, there was us. Just us. What if we told them a different truth? I suggested. Spencer raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. What if we said that yes, I ended up in your hotel room last night through a series of unfortunate events orchestrated by my overzealous agent. And yes, we spent the night together, arguing, because that's what we do. But in all that arguing, we realized something we'd been avoiding for years. I took a breath. That maybe everyone was right. Maybe we are supposed to be together. We just needed to figure it out on our own terms, not theirs. So we're actually doing this? Spencer's voice held a note of wonder. We're giving this a real shot? I think we owe it to ourselves to try. I smiled up at him. Besides, can you imagine how insufferable our parents are going to be when they find out they were right all along? Spencer groaned dramatically. My mother is never going to let us forget this. Never, I agreed. We'll be hearing about this at every Thanksgiving for the rest of our lives. Worth it, Spencer said, and then he kissed me. This kiss was different from the one 8 years ago on the beach. That had been tentative, questioning, full of teenage uncertainty. This was sure and solid and tasted like coffee and promise. This was a kiss that said we're done running, we're done pretending, we're done letting other people write our story. When we finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Spencer rested his forehead against mine. We should probably face the firing squad downstairs. Our parents? And my publicist. And probably half the entertainment media of Los Angeles. He grimaced. Ready? I thought about it. For years of clawing my way through this industry on my own terms. For years of refusing shortcuts, refusing to compromise my values. And now here I was, about to walk into a media circus that would probably define my career for years to come. But this time it was my choice. My truth. Ready, I said. We called down to the restaurant where our parents were having brunch. 10 minutes later, all 4 of them were back in the suite, trying poorly to hide their excitement. Spencer's mother looked like she was physically restraining herself from calling wedding planners. My father had that particular gleam in his eye that meant he was already planning the merger of family businesses this would enable. Spencer cleared his throat. Riley and I have something to say. 4 pairs of eyes locked onto us with laser focus. I took Spencer's hand, lacing our fingers together. Last night was not what you think. My agent, acting without my knowledge or consent, manipulated the situation to get me into Spencer's room. When Spencer found me, we argued. For hours, Spencer interjected. Screamed at each other until we both lost our voices, actually. Our mothers exchanged knowing looks. His father tried to hide a smile. However, I continued, shooting Spencer a look that said let me finish. In all that arguing, we realized some things. About us, about what we want, about what we've been avoiding for a very long time. We're going to try this, Spencer said simply. Date. For real. On our own terms, at our own pace. No wedding planning, no pressure, no interference. He looked pointedly at his mother. That means you, Mom. Martha Pembroke pressed a hand to her chest in mock innocence. I would never. You already have a Pinterest board, don't you? I asked. She had the grace to look slightly sheepish. It's just ideas. Very preliminary ideas. Delete it, Spencer and I said in unison. My mother stepped forward, and I braced myself for the typical parental interference. Instead, she surprised me by taking my free hand, her expression gentle. Riley, sweetheart, I've watched you grow into this strong, independent woman who knows her own mind. I've watched you fight for what you believe in, refuse to compromise your values, carve your own path in a very difficult industry. She squeezed my hand. So if you say you want to do this your own way, I believe you. We all do. Right? She looked at the other three parents with an expression that clearly said agree with me or else. Of course, my father said immediately. Absolutely, added Spencer's father. Martha sighed dramatically but nodded. Fine. But I'm keeping the Pinterest board, just in case. For inspiration. Mom. It's private. You'll never see it. Despite everything, I laughed. This was my family, overbearing, over-involved, but ultimately supportive. They drove me crazy, but they were mine. There's one more thing, Spencer said, pulling out his phone. We need to make a statement. Something honest. Riley? I nodded, pulling out my own phone. Together, we crafted a statement, not a corporate press release, but something real. Something us. 10 minutes later, Spencer posted it to his social media accounts. I shared it immediately after. To everyone who's been following this morning's events, yes, I, Riley, ended up in Spencer's hotel room last night through circumstances beyond my control. Yes, we spent the night together, arguing, because that's our love language apparently. But here's the truth the tabloids won't tell you, Spencer and I have known each other our entire lives. We've been friends, enemies, rivals, and everything in between. Last night, we finally admitted to ourselves and each other that maybe we could be something more. So we're going to try. We're going to date. We're going to figure this out like normal people, not like social media entertainment. We'd appreciate privacy, but we know that's probably not happening. So instead, we'll ask for patience. For understanding. And maybe, for once, for the benefit of the doubt. We're not a scandal. We're not a publicity stunt. We're just two people who finally stopped being stubborn long enough to admit they care about each other. Wish us luck. We're probably going to need it. Riley and Spencer. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within minutes, the post had thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. Some supportive, some skeptical, some still convinced it was all a PR move. But buried in all the noise were comments that made me smile. Okay, but this is actually adorable? Arguing as a love language is such a mood. I respect the honesty. Good luck to them. Finally, a celebrity couple that doesn't pretend to be perfect. Spencer's publicist called within 5 minutes, alternating between panic and grudging approval. It's unconventional. But it's testing well. The authenticity is playing surprisingly strong with the 25 to 40 demographic. Great, Spencer said dryly. That's exactly what I was worried about. Demographics. Just don't do anything stupid, the publicist warned. No more surprise hotel room situations. And for the love of God, warn me before you post anything else. After we'd fielded calls from publicists, agents, I'd already fired Mindy via text, and several overeager family friends who'd read the statement, our parents finally agreed to leave us alone. But not before extracting a promise that we'd come to dinner the following week. All of us, my mother insisted. Both families. We'll make it a celebration. Of what? I asked suspiciously. Of you two finally pulling your heads out of, my father caught my mother's warning look. Of you two figuring things out. When they finally left, the suite felt suddenly very quiet. Spencer and I stood in the middle of the room, the weight of what we'd just done settling over us. So, I said. So, Spencer echoed. We're dating. Apparently. People are going to watch every move we make. Probably. We're going to argue. Definitely. Spencer stepped closer, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I'm going to drive you crazy. You already do. I matched his steps. I'm going to call you out when you're being a pretentious ass. Looking forward to it. He was close enough now that I could see the laugh lines around his eyes, the small scar on his chin from when he'd fallen off his bike at age 12. We're probably going to crash and burn spectacularly. Most likely. I reached up, straightening his collar just to have something to do with my hands. But at least it'll be honest. At least it'll be real. Real, Spencer repeated, like he was testing the word. I like real. Good. Because I'm done pretending. I met his eyes. No more running. No more hiding behind pride or fear or what other people expect. Just us, figuring it out as we go. Just us, Spencer agreed. Then, softer, I like the sound of that. The kiss that followed was interrupted by my phone buzzing insistently. I groaned, pulling away to check it. My best friend from theater school had texted approximately 37 times in the last 5 minutes, each message more demanding than the last. Riley. Riley Lou. Riley Catherine Lou. I leave you alone for one night. One night. And you're dating Spencer Pembroke? The Spencer Pembroke who you once said you'd rather eat glass than kiss? Explain. Now. I showed Spencer the messages. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. You said you'd rather eat glass? You once told your college roommate I was the human embodiment of a headache, I countered. I have receipts. Fair point. He pulled out his own phone, which was blowing up with similar messages from his friends. Want to get out of here? Avoid the paparazzi in the lobby and actually talk about what happens next. Where would we go? Spencer's smile turned mischievous. I know a place. That place turned out to be a tiny family-owned diner in a neighborhood far from the glamorous parts of LA where paparazzi lurked. The kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and a laminated menu that hadn't changed since 1987. We slipped in through the back entrance, and the elderly woman at the counter took one look at us and pointed to a corner booth without a word. You come here often? I asked as we slid into opposite sides of the booth. When I need to remember what real food tastes like, Spencer admitted. And when I need to think. The owner, Mrs. Chen, she doesn't care who I am. To her, I'm just another customer who better clean his plate or face her wrath. As if summoned, Mrs. Chen appeared with a pot of coffee and 2 mugs. She looked at me critically. New girlfriend? Yes, Spencer said, at the same time I said, it's complicated. Mrs. Chen snorted. Love is always complicated. But you, she pointed at Spencer with the coffee pot, you look at her different than the others. Like she's people, not decoration. I tried not to laugh at Spencer's expression. The others? Models. Actresses. Always on their phones, always asking if we have quinoa. She pronounced it quinoa. We have burgers. We have fries. We have pie. You want quinoa, go to Whole Foods. I like her, I told Spencer. Mrs. Chen poured our coffee with the efficiency of long practice. You better like more than me if you're going to deal with this one. He's picky. Sends back coffee if it's not exactly right. Once, Spencer protested. I did that once, and you were trying to serve me decaf. You young people and your caffeine addiction. She shook her head but smiled. I'll bring you the special. Both of you. And pie after. Arguing couple discount. She walked away before we could correct her on the arguing couple part, though honestly, she wasn't wrong. Spencer wrapped his hands around his coffee mug, his expression thoughtful. So. Ground rules? Ground rules, I agreed. Good idea. I'll start, no using the relationship for professional gain. If I book a role, it's because I earned it, not because I'm dating you. Agreed. And same goes for me. Your connections, your family's influence, that's off limits for my projects. No performative social media unless we both agree to it, I added. I'm not going to be your Instagram prop. And I'm not going to be your +1 just for appearances. Spencer held up a finger. But I reserve the right to brag about you when you do something amazing. I felt warmth bloom in my chest. Okay. That's allowed. Same for you. We tell each other the truth. Always. Even when it's hard. His eyes met mine over the coffee. Especially when it's hard. No running away when things get difficult, I countered. We talk. We fight if we need to. But we stay and work through it. We keep our families out of it, Spencer said firmly. I love my parents, but my mom would plan our wedding in a week if we let her. This is about us, not them. Yes. God, yes. I laughed. Though your mom is definitely still keeping that Pinterest board. Oh, absolutely. Probably adding to it as we speak. We sipped our coffee in comfortable silence for a moment. The diner hummed around us, the sizzle of the grill, the murmur of other conversations, the clink of silverware on plates. It was ordinary and perfect. I'm scared, I admitted quietly. Spencer didn't pretend to misunderstand. Me too. What if we're wrong? What if we really are toxic together? What if? Riley. He reached across the table, taking my hand. What if we're right? What if all that fire between us, all that passion and competition and intensity, what if that's not toxic, it's just us? What if we're the kind of people who love loudly, who challenge each other, who never settle for comfortable when we could have extraordinary? I turned his words over in my mind, feeling the truth in them. Spencer and I had never been quiet. We'd never been easy. But maybe that was okay. Maybe not every love story was meant to be a gentle romance. Maybe some were meant to be fierce and bright and a little bit wild. Okay, I said. Okay. We try. We try, Spencer agreed. Mrs. Chen returned with plates piled high with burgers and fries. Eat, she commanded. You both too skinny. Hollywood people, always starving themselves. The food was delicious, greasy and satisfying and exactly what I needed after the chaos of the morning. We ate and talked about everything except the situation we'd just navigated. Spencer told me about a film project he was developing, a passion project that had nothing to do with his family's expectations. I told him about the theater role I'd been workshopping, a one-woman show about resilience that terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. You'll be brilliant, Spencer said with such certainty that I almost believed him. You don't know that. Yes, I do. I've seen you act, Riley. Really act, not just the bit parts you get stuck with. I remember the showcase you did senior year of high school, that Chekhov piece. You made everyone in that auditorium forget to breathe. I stared at him. You remember that? I remember everything about you. He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Even when I was trying not to. My throat felt tight. Spencer. Pie. Mrs. Chen appeared like a magic, setting down 2 enormous slices of apple pie with ice cream melting over the top. On the house. For the arguing couple who maybe stops arguing long enough to be happy. After she left, I picked up my fork, looking at Spencer across the table. To being happy? He clinked his fork against mine. To being happy. And driving each other crazy. And everything in between. We left the diner hours later, full of pie and coffee and something that felt dangerously close to hope. The paparazzi had apparently figured out we weren't coming out through the lobby of the hotel, because Spencer's phone showed several missed calls from his publicist with increasingly frantic messages about our location. We should probably show our faces, I said reluctantly. Or they'll think we've fled the country. Would that be so bad? Spencer asked, but he was smiling. We could go somewhere nobody knows us. Start over. We'd miss Thanksgiving with our parents telling everyone I told you so. Fair point. That's going to be entertaining. We decided to take a walk through the neighborhood rather than going straight back. It was one of those perfect LA afternoons, the kind that made you understand why people put up with the traffic and the smog and the chaos. The sun was warm but not oppressive, and there was a breeze carrying the scent of jasmine from someone's garden. Can I ask you something? Spencer said as we walked, our hands brushing but not quite touching. Depends on the question. That night on the beach. 8 years ago. If I hadn't kissed you, if I'd just told you how I felt with words, would you have stayed? I thought about it, really thought about it. Who I'd been at 18, what I'd wanted, what I'd been running from. I don't know, I admitted. I think I needed to leave. I needed to figure out who I was separate from the family, the expectations, the version of me everyone expected. But maybe. I paused, choosing my words carefully. Maybe if you'd told me why you wanted me to stay, why it mattered, I could have promised to come back. We could have tried long distance. Something. I was 18 and stupid, Spencer said. I thought showing you was better than telling you. I thought if I just kissed you the right way, you'd magically understand everything I was feeling. And I was 18 and terrified, I countered. I thought if I acknowledged what I felt, I'd lose myself in it. That I'd become just Spencer Pembroke's girlfriend instead of Riley Lou, whoever she was going to be. We walked in silence for a while, processing 8 years of missed signals and poor timing. Do you ever wonder, Spencer said finally, how different things would be if we'd just been honest with each other back then? All the time, I admitted. But maybe we weren't ready. Maybe we needed those 8 years, the mistakes, the growth, the learning who we are separately, to be ready for this now. Spencer stopped walking, turning to face me. We were on a quiet residential street, no paparazzi, no cameras, just us under the dappled shade of a jacaranda tree. Are you ready now? I looked at him, really looked at him. Spencer Pembroke, who I'd known for 28 years, who I'd fought with and laughed with and tried desperately not to love. Who looked at me like I was something precious and challenging all at once. I'm terrified, I said honestly. But yes. I'm ready. He kissed me there under the jacaranda tree, and it felt like coming home and starting an adventure at the same time. We did eventually face the media storm. Spencer's publicist arranged a brief photo op, nothing staged, just us arriving at his house together, holding hands, looking like what we were, two people figuring things out. The photos went viral, of course. The internet had opinions, of course. But that was the thing about finally being honest, the noise didn't matter as much. Let them speculate, let them judge. We knew our truth. The following week's family dinner was exactly as insufferable as predicted. Both sets of parents could barely contain their glee, though they were trying to honor our request for space. My mother only asked about wedding venues twice. Spencer's mother showed restraint by only mentioning grandchildren once. To Riley and Spencer, my father said, raising his wine glass. May you be as happy together as you've made us all relieved that you finally figure it out. Here, Spencer's father agreed. We suffered through the toasts and the knowing looks and the barely veiled wedding planning discussions with as much grace as we could muster. Under the table, Spencer's hand found mine, squeezing gently. We had this. We could handle interfering parents and media scrutiny and all the challenges that would come. Because at the end of the day, we had each other. And maybe that had always been enough, we just needed to stop being too stubborn to see it. 3 months later, I booked the lead role in an independent film that would go on to premiere at Sundance. I earned it on my own merit, through 5 grueling auditions and a chemistry read that made the director cry. Spencer was the first person I called. I knew you would, he said, and I could hear the pride in his voice. Don't say I told you so. Too late. I told you so. I'm taking you to dinner to celebrate. Somewhere fancy where I can brag about my brilliant girlfriend to strangers. You're insufferable. You love it. The thing was, I did. I loved his confidence, his support, his complete certainty in my abilities even when I doubted myself. I loved how he challenged me, how he never let me settle, how he pushed me to be better while loving exactly who I was. And when his passion project got greenlit, when the film he'd been developing for 3 years finally got funding and studio support, I was there at the celebration, championing his vision to anyone who would listen. We argued, of course. About work, about boundaries, about whose turn it was to deal with our mother's increasingly detailed wedding fantasies. But we kept our promises. We told each other the truth. We stayed and fought through the difficult conversations instead of running. We built something real. 6 months after that morning in the hotel room, Spencer took me back to the Hamptons. Back to the beach where he'd kissed me 8 years ago. The 4th of July fireworks painted the sky in brilliant colors, reflecting off the ocean in rippling patterns of light. Do you remember what you said to me that night? Spencer asked, his arms wrapped around me from behind as we watched the display. I said a lot of things. You said you hoped that someday you'd find someone who saw you, really saw you, and loved what they found. I turned in his arms to face him. I remember. Do you feel seen, Riley? I thought about the last 6 months. The way Spencer had supported my career without trying to manage it. The way he called me out when I was being too hard on myself. The way he knew when I needed space and when I needed comfort. The way he saw my ambition, my stubbornness, my fear, my strength, and loved all of it. Yes, I said. I feel seen. Good. He kissed my forehead. Because I plan to keep seeing you, keep knowing you, keep loving you, for as long as you'll let me. That's a long time, Pembroke. I'm counting on it, Lou. The fireworks exploded overhead in a finale of gold and silver and brilliant blue. We stood on the beach, exactly where we'd been 8 years ago, but completely different. Older, wiser, braver. Ready to build a future instead of running from the past. Our families would get their wedding eventually, we weren't cruel enough to deny them that. But it would be on our terms, when we were ready, because we wanted to, not because it was expected. For now, this was enough. The beach, the fireworks, the promise of tomorrow. Just us, figuring it out as we went. Real, honest, and perfectly imperfect. Exactly the way it was always meant to be.